Hey, I'm Dan, and this is Dan's Planes. And we're back. Cleaned up the workshop a little bit, just feeling too messy. So looking at the landing gear, I've ordered lights. So figure while the wing is open, that could be a good time to put the lights in. So I went ahead and called a company. It's DreamWorks RC, and I'm getting the unit lights. They're expensive, but they're also bright for daylight, which is the whole reason I want to put the nav lights on there, the red and the green. I may even put a landing spotlight on there. So in the meantime, while I'm waiting on the lights, figured I could switch over to the landing gear and get this one unbent. This one's straight. This is the bent one. Also, this is bent. So I'm looking at it, and head on, it looks okay. So I think it's just bent this way. So hopefully I'll be able to put this in a vise and bend it back. If not, then I'll have to try to replace that piece if I can. So I'll do that, and I'm gonna reorder some high sol and that other adhesive so I can end up doing these pieces in the retract area. So I also need to remake one of these because this one had broken and bent and lost its strength. I just glued it back together for a template. So I'll also make one of those. Then I'm probably not even gonna sheet the right side because I'm not totally sure if the light is going to go in the front of the wing or the middle of the wing. I think in the front of the wing, but we'll see. More updates later. Okay, so Princess is introducing this update again. So I've made an adapter to go from battery power from the voltage regulator to the power on the light controller. Now the other wire on the light controller goes into the receiver, and I'm using auxiliary 4, but I've now inserted my extra sections from here to here of wiring in each one of my red and green lights. But now I'm confused because each light has red and black for power and then black for signal, but the 2-channel controller, it only has a channel 1 input and a channel 2 input. I don't understand, and they're showing positive and negative on here, so I don't understand where the signal wires are supposed to be plugged in. I was going to do a Y that would tie in both of these to go into one channel and then use the other channel for a landing light. But number one, I forgot I was going to do that. And number two, it didn't matter anyway because the light that I had for a landing light would be too big. It's not the right shape, so I'm not going to do a landing light. And you have to be careful with landing lights that they can be too bright and kind of blind you when they're coming in. So I'm okay not doing that. But Still, I have no idea where these signal lines are supposed to go, and the instructions don't tell anything. So maybe their website has something online, but I'm probably gonna have to call them tomorrow and find out. So can't really plug them in yet unless I find an answer online. That's all for now. Here's an update on my Mustang. Goliath, stop eating my wires. Good God. Killing me. Gotta keep eyes in the back of your head working on this stuff. So I'm fishing the light wires through the wings so I can then glue them in place on the wing tips. And then, get back. No, you're not doing that. And then join them together here so I'm able to plug them in the fuselage. So what you do is you take some string, I just use kite string, and use something like a wheel collar or a small nut, tie it around, put the wheel collar or the nut into the wing tip, hold your wings vertical, and just kind of move them around to let that nut and string fall through each of the holes in the ribs until it goes all the way through. Then it helps to have some kind of hook to then be able to stick in the hole and grab the string and pull out the wheel collar or the nut. Then the next step is to tie off the other end of the string to the end of the wires you're going to pull through. And because these are bulky, Goliath, no. What I did was arrange them like this to try to be thinner, and then just wrap them in a painter's tape. Like this. So then you're able to pull on the string within the wings and pull the wires through. So I did that on this side of the wing, so I'm ready to apply my adhesive, stick that in the hole, then there will be a little bit of Monocoat touch-up, I'm sure, or paint touch-up, either way. That was a long process. These wings have a servo for the aileron that you have to get around. Then they have a servo for the flaps you got to get around. And I'm pretty sure in the other wing that I had the string go through, but then the string went through this second hole instead of over here, but then came back through here because it was kind of stuck in there. So it took a lot of maneuvering and fiddling with that one. But this one's going to be, knock on wood, easier since this wing is mostly open. So one more step, getting closer to finalizing the repair and upgrade of these wings. Here we are with the lights installed, thankfully. That was about almost 3 hours trying to get the string and the wires through here. Kept getting hung up on the servos and servo wire, and so it took a little while, but it's done. So now I'm reusing sheeting, but the wing had twisted, and since it twisted, That means things aren't going to match up exactly like they used to. But this here is actually solid underneath because of the fiberglass wheel well. So I'm okay in having this piece here be wood and CA and wood on top of the wheel well. This here is wood and CA. I think that's going to be all right. I'll end up cutting out chunks here to make them more square and make that fit. These pieces here, I'm going to do a piece underneath, probably. So I got these holes here, so could really use to cut out a chunk here that could attach to the rib, have it go over, and then where a seam would be here, do sheeting underneath. And then here, need to get some sheeting, probably just cut off in squared areas. But this big piece over here, ready to put that in now. So the way it broke, with all the rib pieces still attached there, I'm just going to put medium CA along the entire rib line and then fit the sheet on here and then painter's tape it on and let it cure. And then I'll go around the edges with either thin or medium CA. And I've found over the years, if you use a medium CA, you can hear the CA. I used to just put on the medium or the thick CA and let it cure. And then I was left trying to sand it down. And the CA sands slower than the wood around it. So I would end up with uneven wood and CA. So what I do now is I put the medium or thick CA on and then I wipe it off with a paper towel and then hit it with accelerator and blow on it. It'll kind of turn white and crystallize, let it cure, and do it again, and you end up filling the gap that way without a whole bunch of CA that you've got piled on that you've got to now sand off. So that's seemed to work out pretty well for me. So next step is putting the big sheet on, and then it'll be filling in all the little pieces. Although this looks pretty rough and is pretty rough, I've done a lot of bracing internally on this, and for the retracts I'm going to reinforce that with not high sol, but there's another type of two-part that I've mentioned earlier. I can't get a hold of high sol right now, COVID shortages and all that stuff, so I have to use that other Loctite adhesive. So this is a major part of the wing and it needs to be strong, but I think the internal bracing that I've done, replacing all the wood in here, I think it's going to turn out just fine. It's pretty ugly right now, but after I get the last pieces of the wood put in there and get it secured well with CA, and then do the fill in with the balsa filler, I think it's going to turn out pretty nice. All right, updates later. I've finished sheeting the last of the wing now on both sides. This was previously done, and this was previously done, but this is new. Then the opposite side, I'll show that in just a second, but I need to put my servos back in. They don't need to be out anymore now that I've got that sheeting on, so I can pop those in. And hang on a second. Here's the other side of the wing. So it's all sheeted. No sheet. So I left most of this area and this cracked part here because underneath is the fiberglass wheel well, and it would have been a major pain getting all that removed with careful dremeling. So just decided to keep it. It's rough along here, but that's okay. I've sheeted, and then I've sanded down all the high spots. So the next step, I filled in a lot of the low spots with medium CA and then sanded it as needed. But the next step is to use the balsa filler and get that put in all over the low spots. And just like if you were mudding a wall for drywall, you're going to have peaks and valleys, but you use the balsa filler to smooth it out so they aren't as apparent. They're just more smooth. So hopefully do that, because underneath the Monocoat you can see these lines, which, you know, on a warbird it can be okay because it's just battle damage and they can look like hidden panel lines. This warbird's just built for speed, not for scale anyway. And I'm cutting my teeth on giant scale warbirds with this one since I have another one in the box in the garage. So I didn't want to pull that wing out when I could fix this one. So it's taken a long time to get this one fixed, but I also had the S-Bach repair in front of it, and what was the other plane? Oh yeah, the Sundowner. And I even had to fix my Swift, and I thought there was another plane. Oh yeah, P-47 was in there. So been a lot of projects that came in front of this. I'm glad to have just kind of hammered it out and get it to this point. I'll show next steps later after I wipe this all down with the homemade cleaning solution and wipe down my work area and then put on that filler. Okay, real quick, I thought it was Balsa Light, but it's Hobby Light Balsa Colored Filler by Hobby Co. So I don't know that this is still sold or sold as a different name now. It used to dry up really quickly, so I tried to keep the top on it, put that down, put saran wrap doubled over on itself, put that on there, and then screwed the lid on, and then put that inside of a Ziploc. And it seems to have maintained itself, thankfully. It's basically, I think, just powdered up balsa dust with some kind of solution, but it wipes off with soap and water. So you just use a piece of wood, or I guess a credit card would fit in there. I use a little larger plastic piece in lieu of a credit card, and you just scoop some out and throw some on. Sometimes it doesn't stick the best at first. Don't know why that is, but and it gets crumbly. So you just put some on like so, and then use a credit card or a piece of plastic like so. Just going over it several times, smoothing it. It'll also stick to your credit card thingy. That's the technical term. If anything, you want to have a little too much put on, not too little, because you can sand it down to what you want. So if you shine a light at an angle, just like if you were doing drywall, you can see all the imperfections that are there. Oh man. Gotta be patient putting this stuff on. And it dries pretty quick. And basically, there was a high point along this edge, so now I've just built up a ramp up to that edge with this filler, and then I'll sand it down, which will blend it into the wood. So hopefully nobody will tell that it was there. So I'm going to do that on all these low points, or where there's a high to low point. So all of these gaps I'm going to fill in. So that's what I'm doing. This part and then the other side. So here it is. The hobby light filled over all the dang cracks and creases. So you don't have to do it all in one coat. And this area here that was really roughed up, I might have to do another coat on that after I sand this down and see how it goes. This is also, I guess, like doing fiberglass on wings. You just fill in the dips and sand down the high parts. But I've never done that. Maybe in the future someday. More updates later. I finished putting the sheeting on now and putting the filler on, sanding the filler. I went ahead and installed one retract. Had to do a little bit of carving of wood to get it to fit in there, so the rib wasn't put back in exactly the same place. Now this was the one that took the brunt of the force when it landed, and that's what twisted the wing and the body and bent the retract. So that piece took a little more to get that going right. And I used the whatchamacallit, Loctite EAE-00NS adhesive because I couldn't get Hysol. Everybody is out of stock. So I think this is a bit stronger than typical adhesive. So I used it. But I had remade this piece twice and didn't do a good job of it, and ended up using the original piece of wood. Now we get to see if the retract is going to fit in there. Hopefully I'll just have a little bit of carving to do on this edge to fit the retract in. And hopefully the screws will go into where there's plywood so it's nice and solid. I'm also going to have to realign the wheels because this wheel was moved this way, so I'm not sure exactly how it goes. So almost down to doing the monocoat and calling this done. And here are the top of the wings that are ready to be recovered now. So I've got all the sheeting done, all the filling and sanding done, wiped it down. I had put in one retract and started to put in the other, and I realized I had accidentally pulled out these shorter tubes, which is the air to close the retracts. So I've got to feed those back through the wing again. So I've already got a string with a wheel collar attached to it through. So I'm going to have to do those. But I decided I wanted the retracts out of the wing to do the covering. It'll make it easier. So that's the top. And here are the bottom of the wings. So getting towards the home stretch here. Here we go. We've got finished wings except for retracts. That's all that's left. I have to plumb the purple lines through the wing and then install the retracts. Then test them, make sure they're not getting hung up on anything. Turned out pretty doggone good. Slight discolor from, roll a Monocoat to the factory Monocoat. That's going to happen, but maybe it'll look like panels. It's a warbird. It's supposed to be beat up. And then the other side. There we go. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. Yeah, there are some wrinkles there. But to get that curvature and get wrapped around the front edge, even the factory had some wrinkles there. So that was tough. That took some convincing of the Monocoat. Now we got our lights in. I also got the white covered to cover the wires on both lights. So, also finished, well, on the other side over here is a patch of Monocoat I had to do, so that's done. So again, just put in the retracts and then test them, and also test for air pressure. I had leaks before, but I recently learned you've got to lubricate the main piston in here and then the pistons in each retract, and that seemed to help on my P-47, so I'm assuming that's going to help here as well. All right, the gear are in and I've been testing them. I ran into one issue where I had to cut off a part of this wood because this piece of wood was a little cockeyed and should have been this way a little bit more, which you can see the hole that this screw should have gone into. So I cut that away, but then ran into another issue. This was the Sierra gear that was bent really bad, and I got it fixed. He sent it back. But when he sent it back, these, I don't know what they're called, I'll call them arms. These arms are on the wrong side. They need to be on this side. And this piece, I don't know if it's press fit. I don't see a way to turn it unless I turned the whole thing. But if I do that, I then need to twist the wheel to the opposite side, which I don't know how to do that. It looks like there's potentially a pressed fit pin in here, a hollow tube in there. So this gear won't go down. So I was sent the voicemail and posted a picture to the club and looking for some help. Got to figure that out. So I don't want to put the covers on yet until I make sure that these are working without getting hung up. And I thought that was the last thing I needed to do on the plane, but I totally forgot. I've got to solder the wires for the lights to combine the two sides into one plug. And I've got to put the tail gear back on, tail gear doors, excuse me, back on. So on we go. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Dan from Dan's Planes. I just want to share some content about RC planes, something I've been passionate about since childhood. I'm hoping I can teach something to someone, I can start some discussion and learn some things from others. So let's just have some fun and learn some things together. If you enjoyed what you watched, it would really help me out if you could like, subscribe, and share. And if you feel that it helped you out in some way, or it might help future viewers, I'd really appreciate it if you'd visit my Patreon page and become a patron. It's like throwing a dollar tip into a guitar case when you pass by. It helps to fund future content and future projects that I'll be working on. I plan to show some past content. I have some other flights and I have some fly-in events that I've been to. And I also plan to show future flights and future repairs, as well as building ARFs, and if I can ever get back to it, building my top flight Spitfire. So there's a lot of content to come, but it's viewers like you that are able to support what I'm doing, and by doing that, I'm able to spend more time creating that content in the future. So I'd really appreciate it. But either way, thanks for watching, and thanks for any support, and I wish you blue skies and good speed.